Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the French Pavilion. Thank you for being here to attend this conference called Nature-Based Solutions, France's Action to Adapt to Climate Change. So here we are, the French Pavilion at the World Nature Congress. My name is Eric Morin. I am the Secretary General of a small organization called the ONERC, that is the National Observatory on the Effect of Climate Change in the Ministry of the Ecological Transition. And my organization works with Sarah Voirin, who has organized and will be the moderator of this conference, along with Mathilde Nourry from the French Office for Biodiversity. To start with, I would like to tell you more about nature-based solutions and climate change adaptation. I would also like to mention the public policies that support the development of nature-based solutions in France. Next slide, please. So here's a dense slide that tackles different questions. So I'm sure you've heard about the latest report published by the IPCC in last August, and that tackled the geophysical aspects of climate change. This report said that we've already reached a 1.5 degree temperature rise around the world. It is that the trends are going at a much more rapid pace than we thought. And so scientists have been calling for this, have been announcing this trend for years. And nowadays, we know that the current CO2 concentration in the air shows that we will reach this 1.5 degrees temperature rise by 2030. That is earlier than we previously planned. We need to act to reduce CO2 emissions, and if we do now, we will see the effect of our actions by 2040 only. So what we need to do now is to maintain this 1.5 temperature rise as much as possible. But if we keep on with the current CO2 emissions, then it will get worse. The current global warming trend will have an impact on society as a whole, and in February, the IPCC will publish a second report of the impact of climate change, and we will have new insights about the current phenomenon. There are heat waves, floods, and other extreme weather events in France, as well as worldwide. This trend is going to continue no matter what we do, at least until 2040. Climate change is happening. We cannot say it isn't. Everybody feels the effect of climate change, the population as well as the industry. And environment feels climate change too, because it is the first affected. So we're facing changes we cannot avoid anymore. However, we must do everything we can to limit climate change and its impact. Once upon a time, we didn't have to talk about adapting to climate change, but now we have to. And if we don't get ready, we will be severely affected. And at the same time, we must limit the temperature rise to 1.5 degrees as previously planned by the Paris Agreement. And now I'm going to talk about nature-based solutions. This concept is quite recent. It is not widely known. There are many questions. Many questions arise, and you So nature-based solutions are focused on restoring ecosystems so they can contribute to adapting to climate change or climate change adaptation. So, for example, we can act within cities to reduce the heat waves. Nature-based solutions contribute to refreshing urban areas when it's possible in the city. And nature-based solutions preserve wetlands. So when wetlands are preserved, there's this available reservoir we can use, and nature does things well. So when there are floodings, wetlands can serve as a buffer zone that will contain water flows and different other impacts. So I just gave you a few examples of nature-based solutions, but there are many others. 2 years ago, the ONUC, my organization, published a report. And this report gathers a lot of insight, a lot of knowledge. You can find it here, or you can also find it on the internet. So what can we learn from this report? We'll need to know, to understand the economic and social impacts of nature-based solutions. They don't always work, and sometimes they can supplement engineering. We need to end any defiance. We need to put an end to the defiance, to fear. And when we do implement nature-based solutions, we want them to be climate resilient, but climate resilient in the future. In 10 years, for example, we need to be sure that the nature-based solutions we use will be able to function in the future when the climate will change. Nature-based solutions are the result of the convergence of different public policies. And we focus on two main policies. First of all, the Biodiversity Plan published in 2018. This plan says tackles the support we need and the climate change adaptation solutions we need to move forward. It aims to experimenting innovative solutions on the ground, so we can move towards a wide-scale implementation. There is also another plan we focus on, and when we drafted it, we gave the priority to nature-based solutions. It was evident for us, and so we decided to support it in priority. And this plan is called the PNACC2, and it aims to prepare France to face a temperature that will be 2 degrees higher compared to pre-industrial levels. We need to act. We got plans until 2050, and we could have to adapt to a higher temperature rise, potentially. To implement these policies, we've got different tools. There is, above all, a project called Life Artisan, implemented at the European level. It is coordinated by the OFB, and it is implemented through different tools. Above all, a trophy that will be presented tonight, and that is really important to showcase the political will involved. And now I'll leave the floor to Sarah. Thank you very much, Eric. Good morning, everyone. I am delighted to see you today and to present you with nature-based solutions. We are going to start with the local point of view. So Christophe Moreau is here. He is the head of the Department Territory Development and Biodiversity at the Compagnie nationale du Rhône. He will tell us about the river, the Rhône River, opening its arms and widening its bed for improving water flows and water resources management. Then we'll tackle financial tools for a nature-based solution with Suzanne Rial, right next to Christophe. She is the head of a 2050 nature project at the CDC-Biodiversity. She'll tell us more about the Nature 2050 program. After that, we will talk about the Mediterranean. After all, we are in Marseille. And Pauline Voyot, the coordinator of climate change adaptation of the MPA Engage project at the National Park of the Calanques. And she will tell us more about protected marine area as solutions to climate change adaptation. Finally, Yannick Etienne will take the floor. She's right next to me. And she is the responsible of a water ecosystem resilience project at the French Fund for Global Environment that works. So she will tell us how France supports developing countries in protecting the coastline from erosion and submersion. And finally, we will conclude the session with a project called Life Artisan, and please stay with us at the end of the session because there will be time to ask questions. And now over to Christophe Moreau.
Good morning, everyone. I will enlighten you regarding all of the activities that we do throughout the Rhône River regarding nature-based solutions. And we will be looking at improving the flow of the water at time of flooding and other elements regarding biodiversity. In a local context regarding the Rhône River, this is a majestic river. There was a whole series of human pressure exerted on this river with development of navigation at the end of the 20th centuries and the beginning of the 21st. And then we went to a more contemporary period with hydroelectric infrastructure for producing energy and navigation being even more highly developed, as well as looking at the farming issues along the river. There is a channel that was actually developed and with the new challenges for tomorrow with climate change. There were three major elements. Of course, the reduction in water resources. There are predictions of in 2050 there should, or 2070, 30% reduction in water levels. There's also a warming of the water due to all of the various uses, human use and others. It really is a reality going from upstream to downstream. Then there's the rainfall, the intensity of rainfall, intense rainfall in very short periods, and the effect that it has on the flow throughout the Rhône River. Then there's water quality. There are some aspects that are less visible, like endocrine perturbers. This regarding resources you see on this slide, we see the history of the Rhône. There's a secondary branch, there's a main branch, as you see, very functional. They sometimes are 2-3 kilometers wide, and little by little they go to the alluvial plains, and we will look at not necessarily the hydroelectric systems, the channels, incoming channels, or the dikes. But we haven't really done any modification, and the Rhône River continues its long life throughout these alluvion plains. In 2003 and 2, there was a break in these floors due to the restoring these areas and what consequences it had on water resources. So they were modified over time, millions of meters of meters of water that underwent change, and in face of this modification of the hydrological elements of the Rhône really affected its flow. So these illustrations here, you see a small flood, which is a 10-year period. It's usually in human memory as well that plays here. It's very flash flooding, which is the main characteristic of this river, and of course it overtakes these alluvion plains, and it's the way that they flow that is very brisk, very quick, and so there are acres and acres that is overtaken by these flash floods. And in order to better understand these historic mechanisms and how to react to them, there was a lot of study that was undertaken, and looking at solutions that are based on nature itself and the best adapted solutions, and how to work with nature and the issues of the territory. And these go by decades, and this is why we have looked into nature-based solutions for this. The other aspect is the resources, water resources, and so there's alternation between the groundwater, of course, during flooding and during classical times, and so we have to re-establish the normal levels. And then there's the current, and we have to, go towards the cooling of the waters as well. And so we really have to look at infrastructure that really doesn't have any reason to be. It's 100, 150 years old, and so we have to look at how it can be the most natural possible, all of this infrastructure. So 2 major actions that were undertaken, 2 engineers, Guy Girardon, in these, we have illustrations of these operations, and as you see on the photo regarding the Roussillon, we have dikes that don't play any role any longer, and so there's this free space where the Rhône can just take its place and mobilize its major masses. Then we do have all of these various arms going out, and streams that have become sedimentary with sedimentation, and it can no longer be sufficient to work alone. And even if the infrastructure, that was helped along by mankind, we still need to go and create a certain drive on these river arms that go into the alluvion plains, and we will actually gain in terms of flow capacity. But the way that these estuaries work is to limit the very fast flash floods and try to give it a very natural function where they will be connected at the time of flooding by reestablishing the functions of these estuaries and working on the diminution and the reduction of these flash floods. These are one of the nature-based solutions that we're working on, but as I said in the introduction, within the benefits of these nature-based solutions for improving flow, it's also one of the major beneficiaries, so to speak, is biodiversity. And because, of course, one of the main natural functions of a river, no matter how grand, is held within its hydro systems, and it is its natural functions, using its sediments again, and it right through to the aquatic milieu and the semi-wetlands as well. And in the fringe areas, the alluvial fringes, it's important to see the action there too. And another aspect of nature-based solutions is to place it in the perspective of future developments, and as best we can, that's difficult, because it's technical, very difficult to get the good answers to this, but we have to look forward to at least and project 10, 20, 50 years from now. So that's very complicated. So thank you for your attention, and I would just like to end by saying that in these nature-based solutions and adaptation, it's very selective. We work with the municipalities, the various regions, regional governments, different elements of the territory and institutions. We have 77 estuaries that were restored, and we work along with the inhabitants that live along the riverside. And we work with the various stakeholders, engineers, etc. And we need a lot of concerted effort in this. And this is what we're doing in terms of nature-based solutions. Thank you for your attention. Thank you. Thank you very much, Christophe, for your wonderful presentation. And now I will ask Suzanne Rial from the CDC-Biodiversity group. Thank you, everyone. Hello. So for those who don't know CDC-Biodiversity, it's a group that supports public stakeholders who work in the area of biodiversity. And so I'm working on SAPO, which is a voluntary program as of 2016, just after the Paris talks. I'm not going to come back to nature-based solutions, but following those talks, we organized this project and program. We have identified at the time a certain number of hindrances regarding these nature-based solutions. One was the scale of these, the bearers of the projects regarding their financing plans. And the municipalities will be applying for public funds, and from the regional government, from the counties, etc. But they could have difficulty in actually really establishing their funding concretely, and so they could never really go to the very end of their financing. And so our plan was to help with that missing chain in the financing. The other issue that we wanted to address was for additional financing to come into play along with or on top of the public funding. And we proposed our participation in the financing. And finally, it was to enable private businesses, to guide them along in their action. So they may not have the capacity or the capabilities to go at it alone. And so we are there to offer our assistance. And not only on mainland France, but throughout the overseas territories as well. So we had to identify and support all of these projects directly on and throughout the territory. And so we were committed, along with the project bearers, that their projects be over the long term and be carried through right over the long term. And there were major public institutions, as you see on the screen, and nature protection associations, but also the Nature Museum, Natural Museum in France, and looking at how you can work on the impact on biodiversity, climate change, and the consequences it could have on their territory. And so we wanted to give our support to them and give our opinions and advice. Of course, in this intervention, we wanted to go into more details, especially with the businesses and the economic stakeholders. With respect to the program, we opened up a program on different scales, whether it be small, medium, or large businesses, depending on their financial capacities. These companies had different issues to deal with, lots of different things at stake, and some that were looking at public contracts, and others that were more involved in housing or transportation. And so it depends on their whether they were dealing with the inhabitants or the whole network. And of course, others were just looking at their clientele. And so all of these companies, there are about 50 of them today that have hooked onto this program and working on over one or several years' time. And so either it's a net or a set amount, and it could also depend on their activities. And so it depends on their the people that they're in cooperation with, or whether they're going to change every year, or on the percentage of their sales figures.
And they are funding given to our project bearers with support. For example, in 2019, with the Paris Métropole, we launched a common project called Métropole de Paris Nature 2050, and our aim was to provide a financial support to 50 collectivities. So the Métropole has provided funding, and so there was a 20% additional funding to support current works, the works that are underway. So we also need to finance here the follow-up of this project, and how it's possible. So many contributors join our program. So we managed to gather 5 million euros, 5 extra million euros. So we have in total 10 million euros that enable us to support all the projects you can see on the screen. And there's a growing number of projects. As you can see, the map of France is quite empty, but our objective is to get a network that will spread over the whole territories. There are many local stakeholders that support our project. There are different kinds of stakeholders, They present their project, and we give them funding for the ecological restoration and the monitoring of the project. And together with our scientific partners, we have developed indicators that encompass all projects. And so there are different indicators that will help us measure the level of maturity of the ecosystem. We also develop indicators that are specific to each project. So we work with citizen science along with the Natural Museum, and it is true that we reach out to the experts for each indicator, because we want scientific relevant data, but we also want to be realistic. We have a long-term plan, so we need to create pilot project that will be replicated on other territories. And we ensure the follow-up of this project with our two plans. We also want our artisan plan to benefit from our work. And there are different scales, there are different challenges, because our projects are all over France. There are ecosystems in marine areas, in urban area, in forest, among others. So we have diverse projects, and we want to share our success stories. And here there's a project in red. It is based right next to Montpellier. This is a wine business, and when we discovered it, when we went there the first time, it was in 2017. It was quite a small farming business, and the price of one bottle was around 2 or 3 euros, but they were facing, obviously, like everybody, climate change. The harvesting is earlier during the year. So we met the family, and they wanted to commit to adapting to climate change. And our project aims to divide the exploitation in 1 square meter parcels. So that's what we did in that case. And what I wanted to tell you here is that beyond the benefits we can arrive, the benefits are already mentioned, because there are many different tools we use. So beyond all that, here the aim is to change the business model, and we change the business model. The quality of the wine has improved. The price of the bottle is now around 4 or 5 euros, and makes it possible to strike a balance here, because the production has decreased, but its quality has increased, and its sustainability too. So here I just wanted to tell you about what we did. We planted over 2,000 trees. And there will be other trees being planted. Trees were planted within the vineyard, and we have changed the management models for horses, for example. So now, what about the indicators? The indicators can help us monitor the trees, the birds, and the impact of the project, because it is really interesting to see what are its results in terms of green tourism, for example. That's a great example for maybe other projects who want to follow the lead. So we're trying to promote these projects to show to other farming businesses it is possible. So thank you for your attention. Feel free to ask me questions. Good morning, everyone. And now I'm going to talk about the sea and the effect of climate change on the sea. My project is called MPA Engage. It is partnered with the National Park of the Calanques. We aim to gather all key Mediterranean actors to help our area to face climate change. But first of all, let me give you a few insights about climate change and its impact on the sea. Just like beyond the IPCC, there are other expert groups who work on the impact of climate change. For example, the MEDEC, which produces the same type of report, and there have been a 1 to 4 degree temperature rise in the Mediterranean. So if we take the Calanques Nature Park, our estimates are not really optimistic because there are some growingly worrying trends. So as I said, there could be a 1 to 4 degree temperature rise that could have a dramatic effect on marine environments. And there will be more frequent heat waves underwater. So underwater temperature could be multiplied by 4 by 2100 in the worst case scenario. So I won't go into details. To sum up, our project, MPA Engage, is financed by Europe and wants protected marine areas to be funded with nature-based solutions in order to protect and to manage a species' ecological functions that could be used for adapting to climate change. Protected marine areas are supported by scientific organizations, NGOs, as well as national and international organizations. We have many partners on all the Mediterranean shores, in the north, in the south, who will provide guidance or will try to take part in the project themselves. We have launched a Mediterranean Observatory of climate change, and we have adopted an adaptive, flexible business approach. So we support protected marine areas managers so that they can adapt to climate change. Consequently, we will test different methods in order to create a toolbox that will be useful for the whole network of protected marine areas in the whole Mediterranean area. We will transfer these toolkits to reinforce the managers' capacities and find synergies between the different marine areas. The Calanques National Park is a pilot. It will test these methods and will try to draft a climate change adaptation plan. We will launch 4 measures. First of all, monitor the impact of climate change on the ground with local stakeholders. We will try to assess the socio-ecological vulnerability of the relevant area. So we will monitor the underwater temperature rise. Thirdly, we will develop a citizen science so that a citizen can engage. So there will be different observers of our parks, and then we will have many more insights about what's going on. We will also adopt participatory approaches so we can engage citizens and different other stakeholders so we can study, we can deepen our knowledge about the climate change adaptations. And finally, we need to raise awareness. It is essential to engage any local stakeholders, as many as possible. So I don't have enough time to give you more details about the project. However, I wanted to tell you more about the about monitoring climate change impacts. The objective was to develop 11 protocols that were validated by science. They are easy to implement in protected marine areas, and they will monitor 5 climate change impacts. That is the sea temperature. Then it will determine how the species distribution has changed. We also monitor the ratios, that is the proportion of species that are vulnerable to temperature. Some species won't be able to withstand a certain temperature rise. And we will also monitor mortality factors, especially when there are heat waves. As you can see on the photo, there is an example with a coral underwater forest. That's the red flower you can see on the screen. Finally, we will be monitoring phenologic changes. This phenomenon is quite rare. It's caused by several factors and can potentially happen. So we help managers to monitor these factors. They can then record the results and make an assessment, and based on this assessment, they can take sound measures for adapting to climate change. I don't have enough time to tell you more about our project, so if you're interested, please feel free to check our website. We are really active, and thank you for your attention.
Good morning, everyone. I am Jenny Ketian, and I work for the Secretariat for the World, the FFEM. And we implement all of these public plans, and I will give you a few elements regarding these nature-based solutions. And this is the French Global Environment Facility, the FFEM. So here in the mangrove forests in Costa Rica, for those of you who don't know them, they have trees that really are in the water. The roots are in the water, and they are a protective element against tropical storms, hurricanes, and it's the habitat for a lot of animals and water birds, seabirds, and it's a habitat and refuge for certain fish and shellfish. It was rapidly deteriorated because of human activity, deforestation, etc. And to benefit the Costa Rican government, we looked at artificial canalization. So we did channels that we built, artificial ones, and I am reminded here of the Rhône presentation that was given just a few moments ago, and to see how naturally the hydrology can be changed and have these various channels feed into the system. Here, this is the shape that the paletouviers take, these mangrove trees, and the local inhabitants are involved in this project. There are several different advantages actually less than the concrete infrastructure along the coastline, but there are still advantages. If you have any questions, of course, you know, I'm very lucky to have the Mexican University researcher with me today. So if you have any questions, you're lucky because she's here, and so you can ask her any questions that may come up. So now we're going to the Philippines, and there is another project that was implemented by the National Conservation Organization, and it's still dealing with mangrove restoration, but we have this aspect of using, you know, natural regeneration of planting these mangroves, and we're using ecological engineering here. You see that we use, you know, these breakers, the sea breakers, and they break the waves, and then behind them the mangrove can grow more easily. And so these multiple advantages are enabling the sediment accumulation upstream, and even if they do accumulate downstream, they are much better managed. And in this project, which is, we're going to Senegal, as you see, we travel a lot. Here, the issue is actually upkeeping the roads along the coastline in these these beaches along the shoreline. They are very impacted. And we have a WACA project that is focused on the aspect of observing the coastline and how we can work on these issues. There are a lot of pilot sites, a lot of steering committees and activity going on, but they are really supported by the French Conservatoire du Littoral, the Coastline Observatory, and Céline Damery is with us. You can ask her any questions, and she's from the Conservatoire. And so all of these fascines that you will recognize, they are along the French coastlines and enable decreasing the speed of the wind and accumulation of sediment. And so then you can reconstitute the dunes and vegetation. And what we did with the Conservatoire in Senegal is we looked at, well, they're not called fascines anymore, well, we call them tifas. And so we've changed them all along, as you see on the screen, these beach fencing to create these dunes. And they're very simple, and it also is wonderful in aiding small local businesses or micro companies. In Guatemala City, we have a very interesting project. We are working on creating urban nature parks, and so it's right in the city or around the city, and we have areas where inhabitants actually set up house on an uncontrolled basis. And so what we've been doing when confronted with this is setting up parks around these, and it facilitates water infiltration for rebuilding the groundwater, and so we reduce the heat domes or islets as well, and we work together, closely together with the inhabitants there, so that's very interesting. So as you see through this diversity, great diversity of these nature-based solutions, we can set up projects at relatively limited cost, and that are very advantageous for those who work around it and are located around these projects. So not only do we face up to climate change, but we adapt to climate change, and we work with the local communities, and they benefit greatly, these communities, and we're working with climate change in this way. So I'm really sorry this is short and quick, but I don't have any time left. Please do feel free to ask the questions to the experts present, as I mentioned before. Hello, everyone. So actually, it's not Mathilde Lurie who's going to talk. I will talk. I'm the director. Mathilde had to leave as she had another presentation on the same topic at the forum. So, but she's still on site here. You can catch her somewhere. So this is the project called Life Artisan, and it's about nature-based solutions to adapt to climate change, and it is co-financed by Europe and the European Commission, and looking to face up to climate change in France. So there is a demonstration program in France that develops nature-based solutions for adapting to climate change, whether it be vegetation or restoring ecosystems against erosion, or perhaps adapting to farming and forest adaptation with respect to climate change. And so at 5 p.m. today, there is project 26 projects in Hall 2, and so do not hesitate to go there this afternoon for more information on this. And so this project, Life Artisan, and other projects in France help to experiment and see how it works in the field. So we have project engineers within the regional governments and institutions, municipalities, etc., that help to implement these nature-based solutions throughout their territories. This is very important because we need this support so that their solutions be really efficient for adapting to climate change and for biodiversity. There's a very important function or aspect of this, which is capitalizing on this. And the nature-based solutions section, which actually is borne by the Cerema, along with other stakeholders working together with them. And so this Life Artisan project is a huge project, and if you'd like to know a little more, we don't have much time to talk about this. We can just briefly introduce it, but you can go to the 245 on the French biodiversity stand. Before I start my thank yous and concluding here, I'm going to go right along here to the next slide. This afternoon here in this Pavilion France, the French Pavilion, we have a project presented by the ADEME, and it's a life partner, and it's at 4 or 4:30, and it's the beginning. It's actually the launching, and so we invite you to be present at this event later this afternoon. So yes, now we do have to conclude. We're very late, and we have this wonderful tool to work with within these nature-based solutions, and for helping to restore ecosystems when faced with climatic change and its consequences. So we have to capitalize on all of this in order to be able to use it on a general basis in future. And so do stay just after Monsieur, who's going to do his announcements, but we will have a little informal meeting afterwards. So there is a question and answer period just after these announcements. Do stay with us. Yes, thank you very much To all of the speakers, I just wanted to tell you that at 11 o'clock there is a press conference regarding biodiversity, and it's in hall number 9 in Calanques room. Calanques, please do not hesitate to go there if you're interested. Thank you very much. Yes, there are a few questions for the speakers. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you to all of the speakers, and thank you for the public's interest in this. So would you like to raise any questions? We do have a mic, a floor mic, that will be going around. And you can ask the speakers in person. Yes, we do have a person who would like to ask a question. Good morning. I had a question for the first speaker on your conclusion. You spoke of sociology and implementing action. What types of actions do you use, regarding sociology that you spoke of? Well, yes, there was a lot of development regarding this approach. Now, as the projects that were presented recently, we introduced sociology in the design of all of this. We don't really have exactly a precise design set down. We don't know where we'll be involved. We'll be talking with specialists, sociologists, of course. And we have meetings, workshops regarding how the local inhabitants look at this, and the social utility approach, for example, how all of these various actions can impact these things that are being taken place. And with respect to all of this methodology, we look at it right from the outset of the launching of these operations, and in the monitoring process as well, because in these nature-based solutions, working on the ecosystem, there's a dynamic aspect. And so with respect to the users and the end users, there is this dynamic aspect, and it has to be taken into account in their vision of things. So, that's more and more structures and more recent as we work throughout the territory. Thank you very much for the question. Any other questions for our speakers, whether it be on adapting to climate change or nature-based solutions?
Good morning, and thank you, everyone. Here's my question for Biodiv. You have presented different projects, so how can they adjust to projects that will be presented to the RC? Thank you for this question. This is an important question. We support projects away from any complementary measures. All businesses joining the NATO 2050 must have met their obligations as for compensation. So there are different funding tools involved. So our 41 projects here don't benefit from this financing tool provided by the ERC for the moment. Thank you very much for the dialogue. Any other questions? I see another hand raised. Good morning. Thank you for your speech. What about mangroves? How long do they need to grow before being able to withstand storms and erosion? You can ask our colleague. She's an expert about mangroves. It depends on the environment, but we have carried out restoration projects, and thanks to this project, the old mangroves were degraded, and now they are 2 meters high. So I don't have all the scientific data to tell you more about the efficiency of this phenomenon, but this restoration project has given great results within 2 years. And here is our partner from Benin, who uses the same technique with the support of universities. So maybe you're better in a better position to answer this question. Yes, I actually translated the question, and she told me after 14 years we can have really high trees, and these trees can serve as a barrier against natural catastrophes. Thank you very much. Another question at the back. Good morning, everyone. You have presented different really interesting projects for nature-based solution. The IUCN is supporting other nature-based projects. So what can we use the impact of these projects to go towards a standardization? So how can we capitalize and reinforce the approaches used so we can get a consistent method? And you're right, there are many projects involved. So we have decided to launch a transversal initiative, and we have a website where we produce knowledge and different deliverables. So we can disseminate information. The information we got from a different project, from the dialogue between different stakeholders. So you can find postcards on the table with a QR code, so you can actually check the book. And we are trying to create a MOOC. We work with the IUCN and with other transversal initiatives about mangroves. There are many nowadays. However, these projects are quite difficult to implement. We don't always manage to replant mangroves because of a agrophilous hydrologic water conditions. So that's the reason why we need efficient method, and in order to do so we need data. We encourage project bearers to use IUCN standards. There's a lot of work has been done to define nature-based solutions, and there is also the Climate Change Adaptation Resource Center that gathers all technical resources, all insight in order to reinforce our knowledge and the acknowledgement of nature-based solutions. Thank you, everyone. I apologize. We really have to conclude this session. Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoy the Congress. Welcome to this session about aquaculture and biodiversity in the Mediterranean. This session has been co-organized by the Blue Plan and the French Agency for Development, the AFD. The Blue Plan, the Plan Bleu, is a regional activities center that works alongside the Action Plan for the Mediterranean and the UN environmental program. This program was created 40 years ago and is based in Marseille. I am delighted to be the moderator today, and there will be distinguished speakers, the director of the Paul-Ricard Oceanographic Center, the director and co-founder of Next Protein is online, and Catherine Lecouvre, who works for the French Agency for Development, the AFD. But first, let me give you a little bit more information about aquaculture in the Mediterranean. As you know, the Mediterranean has many biological reaches, with its flora and fauna are among the richest in the world. It contains 10 to 12,000 of marine species. 20 to 30% of these species are endemic. And the Mediterranean area covers less than 1% of worldwide oceans, but there is a great variety of habitats that are among the most important and the most productive in the world. However, unfortunately, this area is subjected to a lot of pressure, and a certain amount of fish stocks are overexploited. Aquaculture is among the economic sectors that grows at the fastest pace in the world. It contributes to the food security of our growing population. It generates over 300,000 jobs. This production has been multiplied by 4 between 1996 and 2016, and aquaculture in the Mediterranean is pisciculture at 2/3 and about shellfish at 1/3. This aquaculture is present especially on the northern shore of the Mediterranean in Turkey, Greece, and Italy. By 2015, aquaculture should provide over 50% of all fish consumed that are used for man. And this the production, the aquaculture production should increase, know over 112% increase. Aquaculture can have a positive impact on biodiversity. It reduces the pressure on wild stocks that are overexploited because it is an alternative to fishing. And some types of aquaculture, like aquaculture in wetland or mollusk farming, can contribute to restoring ecosystems and biodiversity. The fish stocks could supplement depleted stocks where there's a low rate of reproduction, and the aquaculture can contribute to the diversity of species located nearby farms. But aquaculture also have a negative impacts on biodiversity. There are some invasive species, and there are effluents. So that is the food that isn't consumed, that is wasted. There are some chemical medicines used, and so those will get into the water, and there will be the proliferation of local algae. And when they degrade, they use oxygen, and they could deplete the oxygens in these areas. And there is also so we need to feed fish in aquaculture. There are diseases, and there are genetic addition of stocks, and there are hormones that can influence the fish that lives next to aquaculture farms. However, there are solutions to make the sector more sustainable in the Mediterranean. We have an integrated approach. We use the aquaculture system recirculation system. We use food which is composed of algae. We use renewable energies. And without further ado, I turn towards Patricia-Ricard, the president of the Paul-Ricard Observation Oceanographic Center. She has also supported a platform that is really active in the protection of environment. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mrs. Dubreuil. I don't have much time, so I'll be brief because our institute, the Oceanographic Institute, has been active for 50 years with a transversal team. So our team now really knows the area well. We focus on the coastline and on the impact of human activities on the sea and on the coastline. All our searches are diverse. We have a laboratory, so we work in microbiology, and we try to restore seabeds too. We cover a wide array of activities. We fight against fish flower because we want to determine how we can integrate different areas such as biodiversity and preservation. So this is a kind of new patchwork, and objective is a new patchwork with zero waste, zero plastic. We've got so many targets involved, and we work on aquaculture because we are trying to erase the negative effects of aquaculture. The ocean has changed. There are new pests in the ocean. There are changes in the surface. That's where there is aquaculture, and there is a growing number of bacteria, emerging bacteria in the surface water. So we were thinking that we could transfer aquaculture on land. So now aquaculture is about farming one fish species at a time. But our models, our growing models must adjust to nature. So why couldn't we create a perma-aquaculture model? I'll explain myself. So we are on land. There are different basins. There's one species. Each species has one basin. So we will feed top predators, and so, for example, we can give the predator some insects, and after that, once it is fed, it will produce feces. Feces will produce nutrients that will be circulated and shared in all the basins. In the different basins, we had some urchins and mussels. So in the end, we use different techniques, and the objective is that to get a water that will be cleaner when it goes out of the system than when it went into the system. So here is one experiment that we carried out with, as you can see, the food we gave the predators. So we tried to study to respond to different criteria in order to create the food that we will give to the predator. And so So we created a nugget, a fish food, and we had different bases with different characteristics. So there were two basins. There was the fish food you could find everywhere, and in the second basin, the solution we created in fish farms today, there is a lot of micronutrient, and they are extracted and used and collected and used to produce animal food. What we need today is to accelerate this sustainable approach to aquaculture. So we need low-cost, efficient, small infrastructure. We need to integrate circular economy. So you need to breed, to farm several species in different bases. When you need insect to feed the fish, you will feed them with the waste coming from other activities. So in the future, food will represent a major challenge, and micronutrients, vitamins, and proteins are precious. So we need to store them, to manage them well. So feed the fish, feed the animal, feed the mankind well, and maintain this a circular economy. So here is our facilities. There is, as you can see, a laboratory, so we can improve our skills. We have a project in Senegal with the Fondation Veolia, and we help vegetable growers in Senegal to integrate agriculture, different approaches, and try to have this circular loop, and combine aquaculture and vegetable growing. So the IOPR wants to invest in sustainability, and we need to keep on moving forward.
Thank you very much for this presentation. This enables us to go even further on this topic. And later we'll have questions. And now I will ask Mohamed Ghazi. Mohamed Ghazi, as I said, is co-founder and general manager of Mest Protein, who has more than 15 years of experience. He's a chemical engineer and businessman, and his next challenge was creating Tech Next Protein and looking at nourishing, feeding the planet in an eco-responsible and manner.
Bonjour à tous.
Good morning, everyone.
Rapidité ou la start-up
There is a technical problem with this connection, remote connection here. So maybe if we cut the video.
C'est mieux?
Is this better? Yes, it is.
Donc rapidement présenter la société Next Protein.
So I would like to present this company. The interpreter cannot hear what is being said.
Donc, on est une société française avec une première unité en Tunisie. Comment je fais pour passer les slides?
How can I do the slides?
Ah, ok. Bah, slide.
Say the word slide.
Donc voilà, ce que l'on fait, c'est que on s'attaque à plusieurs sujets. Donc, premièrement, la pénurie de protéines dans le monde.
First of all, we deal with the lack of
plusieurs
protein
habitants
in the world.
d'ici 2050. Donc, la production de protéines est aujourd'hui
The
cruciale.
production of protein today
Également,
is a
certaines méthodes de
crucial
production de, voilà, de
element.
certaines protéines, que ce soit céréalières ou que ce soit
The
voilà,
production
farine
of
de
certain
poisson,
proteins
aujourd'hui,
such
ne sont pas
as
durables.
cereal
On a un
or
troisième
fish.
problème, c'est le gaspillage alimentaire,
Another
puisque on
problem is
récupère des
food
sous-produits
waste.
agricoles ou agroalimentaires pour nourrir les insectes. Slide. Pourquoi les insectes? Les insectes
So why
sont
insects?
assez efficients sur la surface, sur la
They are
conversion
quite present on the
aliments,
surface
biomasse,
areas
eau
in
et
biomass
émissions de
elements,
gaz.
water,
Voilà pourquoi on est
and
efficient en surface, c'est
gas
qu'essentiellement on fait
emissions, and so this is
de la
why
ferme verticale.
we do vertical farming.
L'insecte, c'est efficient, il est
The
presque aussi efficient qu'un poulet,
insect
il est plus
is
efficient même qu'un poisson.
actually efficient, just as
Et en
efficient as a
eau, on
chicken
est aujourd'hui
or
quasiment
fish,
même excédentaire en
and
eau,
in water it has excellent rapport,
puisqu'on
very
récupère nous
low
des
water
sous-produits végétaux à
needs.
90% d'eau et on a besoin uniquement de 50 à
Actually,
60% d'eau. Donc
in
aujourd'hui,
other areas
on
it's
récupère
we
de l'eau soit pour
90%
l'envoyer
water,
en
and here we
effluent
just need
pour la
50% or
ou on
less,
l'utilise dans nos propres circuits
and we
et
also use
voilà,
it in
avec un
our
bilan
own
carbone
closed circuit
extrêmement
system,
intéressant.
very good
Donc nous, on est
ratios.
éleveur d'un certain type de mouche, la mouche de
We
soldat noir.
work with
Voilà. Un
a
cycle de vie
black
est très rapide,
soldier fly. We work with
voilà, une trentaine
flies.
de jours comparé à d'autres, le criquet,
We
le
can
ver de
raise
farine
them
ou la
within
sauterelle.
30 days. There's
Un profil
also
nutritionnel en protéines très
grasshopper and
intéressant.
other insects that we
Mais surtout,
use,
la chose la plus intéressante, c'est la flexibilité de son
and
alimentation.
crickets as
C'est
well.
que voilà, la mouche peut
But also what is very
s'alimenter sur
interesting
des
with the fly
sous-produits
is how
très
flexible
diverses.
it is.
Et la chose sur laquelle
Its
on a
feeding is
énormément
very
travaillé, nous, c'est
diverse, and we worked a
que la
lot
saisonnabilité en fait
on,
de
for
ces
example, the
sous-produits n'impacte
seasonability,
pas la
which
qualité
does not
et le taux de
impact the
protéines, par exemple, de notre
quality
produit final.
of the protein that is produced.
Donc aujourd'hui,
And
la
so
récupération des déchets pour
today,
nous est très importante.
when
Nous, le premier site est en Tunisie.
the
Donc
initial
aujourd'hui, on est un
site
acteur
here
de
is in
recyclage assez
Tunisia,
important. En Tunisie, il y a
we
quasiment
have a
très peu de
recycling
méthanisation, de
firm
biogaz,
that's
donc
quite
très peu de compostage. Donc
substantial. We have
aujourd'hui,
very
on
little
fournit vraiment un service
composting,
très intéressant à
very
nos
little
partenaires.
gas
Voilà, on
emissions.
fait tout
We work with our
dans un
various
environnement
partners
contrôlé,
in a
température, humidité,
controlled
renouvellement de l'air,
environment,
etc. Donc c'est vraiment
temperature,
une
etc.
ferme,
This
ferme
is
d'insectes. On est vraiment une
an
biotech
insect farm,
pour produire des
a
protéines
biotech
hautement
insect
durables,
farm
hautement
to
digestibles
produce
pour
protein and
différents secteurs.
combustion for
Rapidement, le
various
process,
sectors. Very quickly, the
on reçoit voilà, des
process
aliments tous les jours,
is
plusieurs
as
tonnes.
follows. We receive the
On a un
feed,
travail qui est de
several
recettage. En
tons.
fonction de ce que l'on reçoit, on fait
I
des mixtures que
repeat
l'on donne
that the
au lard.
interpreter cannot
Dans une autre
hear this
unité, on a
remote
voilà,
presentation
je dirais la
very
volière
well.
où là où on fait la reproduction des mouches. Donc tous les jours, on collecte des œufs. Ces œufs-là sont ensuite
With the
envoyés en
reproduction
incubation
of the
puis en
flies
grossissement.
on that
Et c'est là où
site,
on
we
donne
collect the
cette
eggs
alimentation.
on
Et
a
ensuite,
daily
on a
basis.
un process qui est de transformation de l'insecte. De l'insecte, on
There
sort de la
is
protéine
then
et
the
de l'huile pour
transformation of
l'alimentation
the
animale. Et ensuite, par
insect
tamisage,
proteins and oils
on a un
for
fertilisant qui va dans
animal
l'alimentation,
feed,
qui va dans
and
l'agriculture
also for
biologique, puisqu'on est
fertilizer
également
that
certifié
goes
écocert.
into
Donc les produits
organic
Next Milk,
farming.
c'est la farine d'insectes, pardon,
So
qui aujourd'hui garantit à un minimum de 55% de
the meal
protéines et
that
peut
is
monter à
produced is of
60%.
insects,
L'huile
so
également
from
est un facteur
50% it
d'énergie pour
goes up
l'alimentation
to
animale. Et
60%.
le
The oils
fertilisant
as
est un
well
engrais NPK
is a
que
good
l'on peut
factor. The
utiliser dans l'agriculture
fertilizer
conventionnelle ou biologique,
is an
maraîchage,
excellent one
arboriculture,
for
voilà, etc.
organic farming, etc.
Les
We still have the same
Oui,
slide, so I just wondered if you wanted to change
oui,
the
oui,
slide or
voilà,
not. Oh,
on est
yes,
sur la
yes.
diapositive marché à croissance rapide. La 8. Jusqu'à présent, en fait, la farine d'insectes, il y a quelques semaines, était usée pour le pet food et
Up
pour
until now, we
l'aquaculture.
have talked
Sont
about
aujourd'hui dans
insects
le secteur.
that
Et
only need a few
récemment, depuis 2
weeks
semaines, le poulet et le porc ont été
to
ouverts.
grow. Then there
Mais je dirais la
is
mission aujourd'hui de
pork
la
and
société est
chicken.
réellement dans le secteur de l'alimentation animale. Aujourd'hui,
But in the
créer
sector
de la
of animal
protéine
feed,
animale d'une façon
creating
durable aujourd'hui est
animal
un challenge.
protein on a
Donc nous, ce que
sustainable
l'on essaye de faire,
basis
c'est d'essayer de substituer
is
les farines de
difficult. What we
poisson
try to
afin de baisser
do
un peu la pression sur
is
les stocks
try to
aquacoles.
lower the
Mais
pressure
également, pour ça c'est d'un point de vue matière
on
première, mais
the
également on essaie
various
également de
elements of
travailler
nature,
sur
but
des
also we
effets
try
santé, des
to
effets
work on
bénéfiques
health
pour les poissons,
effects and the
pour essayer de
advantages
baisser soit de la vaccination,
in order
soit rajouter
to
voilà,
lower
des
either
antibiotiques, etc.
vaccination
Donc aujourd'hui
or
on travaille également
adding
sur un effet santé
antibiotics, etc.
sur
We
le produit.
try to
Rapidement,
work on
nous
the
on a été
various
incorporé en
products
2015, donc voilà,
very
avec
quickly.
des levées de
We
fonds
started in
successifs parce qu'on
2015.
est voilà, une société avec des capitaux assez importants, on est une
We
industrie,
are a
on a levé
company that
des
has quite
fonds
substantial capital.
chez des
We are
business
an
angels français et
industry.
européens, dont Xavier Niel
It's
par
French
exemple
and European.
en 2017, et
We
voilà,
had
on a travaillé un de
funding
brevet en
in
2018.
2017, and we
Aujourd'hui,
continued in
le site de production est en
2018.
Tunisie et on a reçu en début 2020 un agrément
At the
pour pouvoir
beginning of
exporter
2020,
en
we
Europe. Donc
received a
aujourd'hui,
license to be able to
notre
export
focus est
throughout Europe
d'essayer de commercialiser la farine
and
d'insectes dans, je dirais,
try
l'Europe du
to
Sud,
market
gros
these
bassin
insects and
d'aquaculture,
insect feed
pour
in
essayer
southern
de
Europe
diminuer les imports de farine de poisson qui
to
très souvent
try
viennent d'Amérique
to
latine.
reduce
La
the
solution
imports
clairement
of
qu'on
fish
apporte, c'est
meal.
aujourd'hui quand un client qui fait de l'aquaculture
And today, when
acheter,
you have a
de la
client that
farine,
is
qui peut
in
acheter tous les
aquaculture
mois
and wants to buy
avec
fish
un
meal,
trajet
they
qui
can
est beaucoup
buy
plus long,
every
au lieu
month
d'acheter
in
une
a
fois par
longer
an de la farine de poisson qui vient voilà,
itinerary
d'endroits plus loin
over
voilà,
a longer
d'Amérique latine.
period of time,
Donc,
or
slide
it's better
10,
than buying fish meal that comes from like
on est
Latin
sur un
America,
secteur de
for
commodité,
example.
donc on a besoin de produire des
And
quantités. Donc on a une
we
ambition de
need
monter à
to
100 000 tonnes dans les prochains
produce
100
a
000 tonnes dans
lot.
les prochaines
We are
années
up to
et
100,000
d'essayer d'avoir une
tons
part de
in
marché dans les
future
commodités
years, and we're
d'insectes à peu
trying to
près 10%. En sachant
obtain a
qu'aujourd'hui, quand
market
on parle
share
farine de poisson, aujourd'hui il y a 7 millions de
in
tonnes qui sont produites
this
et
area.
d'ici 2050, on
Today,
a
there is
besoin de 7 millions de
7
tonnes
million tons of
additionnelles
fish meal that is
qui n'existent
produced,
pas
and in
dans les
years
océans. Donc
to come,
aujourd'hui,
it
clairement,
will be
produire d'une façon saine et
twice that
durable
much, and this
des
doesn't
farines,
exist in the oceans.
substituer les farines
And
de
so we
poisson
are trying to
sont extrêmement
substitute
stratégiques.
the
Pour
fish
aller
meal
vers les
with
clients et vers les marchés où
this.
l'aquaculture est importante, donc
So we're
on
going to
vise voilà, l'Europe du Sud, mais
reach out to
également
clients
les
where
Amériques ou l'Amérique
they
latine où
and
l'aquaculture est importante,
countries
mais
that have a
également un
lot
très
of
gros bassin
aquaculture,
d'aquaculture qui est l'Asie
but
du Sud-Est. Donc
also
on
the
travaille sur cette
huge
expansion-là dans ces
aquaculture
hubs
basins
régionaux.
in Southeast
Et
Asia,
Next
for
Protein aujourd'hui
example.
est une société
And
avec une
so
quinzaine de
this
personnes en France. Il y a de
company,
la
we
R&D
have
assez
15
importante.
people
On est au
working
Génopôle
in
à Ivry, on a des
France.
bureaux à Paris, on a de
We
l'ingénierie
have people in Paris,
Lyon
engineering
et
is
on est une
in
cinquantaine de
Lyon, for
personnes en
example, and there are
Tunisie
about
où il y a
50 people
essentiellement
in
voilà,
Tunisia.
le premier site
And
qui a été créé.
so, which was the first
Voilà
site that was
rapidement qui nous
created. So
sommes.
here, very
Donc je vous
quickly,
remercie
are
pour
the
cette
people who
invitation.
work on this, and thank you very much. Yes, thank you, Mohammed, for this presentation and these figures that really say a lot, actually. When you say 7 billion tons are expected of fish meal to feed into the aquaculture basins and production, so we don't have any other solutions. So this is excellent. I will just give a short synopsis, and then we will talk with the participants. So how to reduce the impact of the aquaculture sector on biodiversity? We have to guarantee sustainable systems and to set up a waste system with respect to the aquaculture in the environment. Also the circular system, as was said before, and promoting aquaculture and other areas that have a low impact on the environment and this circular economy. Also, there are bass and sea bream that is being raised in the Mediterranean, but other species would be better here because they feed on algae or what's the residue in water, and so then you wouldn't need the fish meal. Also, to improve the management of predators and park management. So we haven't focused on this yet, but we still have a lot to say. But it's these problems of these species that escape from these aquaculture and pisciculture farms. So in the Mediterranean, it's a regional priority to render these aquaculture sites even more sustainable. So we do have a regional plan for reducing these. There was a Barcelona Convention section that was adopted and will be adapted in future years. The European Union has included it in its Blue Growth program, and in February of this year, the Ministry for the Mediterranean had mentioned it in its plan, and also there are more sustainable and programs in Europe that are to be adapted, and for the 2030 programs as well for the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. And I just wanted to add on the specific activities of the Plan Bleu, the Blue Plan, that were in connection with the Intermed and Blue Reg for the protection of biodiversity, supported by the French Development Agency. And by the end of the year, we would like to publish a roadmap for a sustainable aquaculture in the Mediterranean. And then we will be looking at solutions that have been identified within the framework of this roadmap. And we're looking at a criteria for transferability in order to spread it throughout the region and rendering the innovative methods and approaches operational that we're working on today in order to take up the challenges that cause all of the problems within this aquaculture project. And so now Catherine Lecoupe for the French Development Agency, who has been working for more than 20 years in the area of aquaculture and who is working with the French Development Agency in the area of aquaculture.
So there are environmental challenges in the Mediterranean. There have been for a long time, and now there are sectors that have a high impact on the Mediterranean, but they are crucial. The sectors such as water, sanitation. So there are innovations. Since the two innovations were just presented to you, and now we need to diffuse them, to disseminate them at a large scale and use them. So the AFD is really active in aquaculture. There is one project in Tunisia. We promote aquaculture in Tunisia. We promote aquaculture in Egypt. And we work with producers in Turkey. And this year, we also worked on other innovations. We reached out to Next Protein because we wanted to study innovative project. There was one project in Equator, and we realized there were many stakeholders in our partner countries who that already worked on these issues so we wanted to make a connection with the ministry. We wanted to share our experience with all these innovative actors. And as you know, the AFD has got agencies in different countries, so we it's faster for us to get to know and to reach out to local partners. So this network, these synergies are really important because they can foster the collaboration and make a connection with the Mediterranean. So now we are trying to determine how to implement projects to replicate innovative solutions in partner countries such as Morocco or Tunisia. The roadmap is really useful for the AFD, and I hope it will be equally useful for you. So thank you. I would like to thank all the experts that presented their works today, and I hope you'll be successful, equally successful in the future. Thank you very much. We have a couple of minutes to answer your questions. Do you have any questions for one of our guests? So no questions. So thank you, everyone. And enjoy your day, and feel free to come and attend the other sessions organized by the French Pavilion. There is also the Med France Pavilion in the same hall.
A lot of pollution, for example, that takes place in the ocean, you can't really mend it, but light pollution can be worked on and improved. So if an area is lit, we should be lighting with respect to our needs. We should stay closer to our needs so there is less and less impact. I'm not going to go into any great detail in all of these areas, but there's a whole range of actions that can be conducted. So we should only light up areas when needed. Now, there are three major actions that have been undertaken. For example, a very ambitious set of rules and regulations that have been set down. There is the deployment of dark areas and a darker framework, as well as labels, for example, the regional nature parks and various cities that can have a label with respect to improvement in light pollution. And now I will ask the next speaker, who will talk about this regulation. Yes, hello, I would like to talk to you about this set of rules and regulations. A lot of countries don't have regulations concerning light pollution. So we have looked at the impact on the environment, and we have actually come up with a certain number that are very good for reducing light pollution. For example, between 1 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock in the morning for commercial lighting and publicity lighting, advertising, that has to be reduced. Also, we're looking at display cases, and in the building sector, there's a lot of light that's activated when it's not needed for the built-up areas, churches, monuments, etc. They're all lit at night, but they should be shut. The lights should be shut down. And of course, office space in France, we see that office space is lit all night, and there is, as of 2013, a regulation that prohibits this. Also, we have taken into consideration of this light pollution in the public areas. For example, there is a green growth program that plans to deploy action regarding the reduction of light pollution. In the 2016 Biodiversity Act, in the first chapter of this act, there is the substantial amount of night lights on all of these national monuments, and they should be reduced, but it really was really set down and noted that this lighting during the night has an impact on nightlife. And now the various institutions have to take into account the nocturnal lighting. And of course, the term of light pollution is used in this act when in relationship with the various types of lights, even in the marine areas. So with respect to the greater majority of the lit up areas throughout the national territory, in 2018 we had regulations establishing roadways and various areas that are lit up and various categories with respect to their use. For example, the initial category that ensures security and comfort of the people who use these roads or cycle paths, etc. And also what I have said about window displays, etc., sports events or stadiums and other areas where sports takes place in the daytime should not be lit at night. There are new rules that are being applied in the following article of this act regarding various aspects of lighting. For example, the time frame, when should it be lit and when should it be shut down. The quantity, yes, the quantity of light that should be emitted. For example, there are voluntary application standards that talk about a minimum, but now we are talking, that exists already, but now we are on a ceiling. If you're looking at roadways, you'll look at the length of the street or road, how many meters it is, and how much light there is and how many light posts, etc., lamp posts there are. No, we have to limit the flow to the surface understudy. So this ceiling of quantity of light is applied in this act as well. Also, almost the entire totality of the light flow should be directed towards the land, the floor areas. And so actually a lot of lights shine upwards, and so it doesn't really help the user or the person walking underneath the lamppost, because the light is going upwards towards the sky, whereas now the rule says that it must be directed towards the ground. Also the color, okay, here now today we have very warm lights of white, but the colder and cooler lighting is now allowed in certain areas. There are national parks and nature reserves as well that are regulated. There are in space and astronomical sites as well. This is well regulated now too in certain areas, and so that people can observe the sky with relative comfort. And also there are the regional governments that have to take into account all of these various aspects of light pollution.
There are different projects that have been carried out in France with the so-called Black Corridor. So there are different projects in mainland France. And a little bit later, you will hear another example. These projects are a little bit everywhere. We do have regional partners that have been contributing to the blue and green corridor, and now in the black one. And so we also have a different nature park that have implemented black corridors projects. So now I leave the floor to the next speaker, who will present its own initiative. Good morning, everyone. So now I'm going to talk about an experiment that was implemented in Nantes, and that covers 24 communalities. So it covers a widely rural area. That there is one river, Le Loire, so one main river and little stream. So this heritage was managed by, was transferred to the communalities. And now it is managed and exploited by at the European level, at the national level too. There are 95,000 lighting points. There's a high consumption of electricity for a total of 5 million euros. So as you can see, there are very major challenges to overcome. At first, we have initiated different measures. We started by working with communalities, and we actually interrupted the lighting provision during the night, and little by little, now we have extended our network. There are 20 municipalities who take part in this project, and the main city of the area is Nantes. We hold several meetings so that we can optimize lighting and reduce our lighting consumption, our electricity consumption connected to lighting. So how can we manage lighting so that we can reduce its disruption? So in 2012, we carried out a study by a plane so that we could raise awareness among local actors, that is local shops or different professions such as architects, people who work and provide services to communities. So we just explained how lighting works, what's involved in lighting. In 2019, we launched a new initiative in order to define a new methodology, a methodology pertaining to the black corridor. So we have defined this new tool to make these black corridors so we can target any area that is subjected to high light pollution, and we also target highly urbanized areas so that we can make a recommendation in order to reduce lighting there. And this study will integrate a scheme, the land planning, light planning scheme. This is a framework that makes it possible for us to make a recommendation about public lighting, and we want to ensure the respect of legislation and to reduce light pollution in all the territory. So we are working now on different documents from the urbanism national plan. We work on different layers. That is, there are areas that need to be protected, others that need to be urbanized, and now we have this black corridor, and we need to promote it. We need to explain to users when there are some light planning projects that they will have less, lower lighting, and So we carry out this awareness campaign so that citizens and local actors, the locals, can know how to reduce the light they use. Thank you very much. And now, this is the last section of this session, so we will publish the book we published with the OFB, and then we'll conclude our session. I work for the Resource Center of the Blue and Green Corridor, and I provide guidance on different stakeholders about ecological impacts. So we have observed that many local actors have decided were on board for the Black Corridor. There are 30 municipalities who take part in the project, so that's what we observed. That's how we came to produce tools to provide guidance to local actors. Among these tools is this technical guide that you can access on the internet. We do have some books here with us, but there are not many, so don't feel free to go on the website www.tramnoir.fr, and Romain just introduce the different challenges we are facing, and we are now providing different tools. There is also a summary available in English, so you can share this guide and this summary with non-French speaking people. We have launched a labeling process. You all know the label called Village Étoilé that has been promoted by the ANSPEN and the IDA, another association, is promoting another label for a network of starry skies. And there are 3 in France. The first one is in the south of France. It is in Pic du Midi. There is another one in the southern part of France, in the Cévennes region. And there is a nature park that has been supported by local actors. And the last area is the Alpes, Azur, Mercantour on the right, and I let my fellow speaker explain you everything. So we live in a small municipality, Alpes Azur, and now I would like to talk about the RIS of France, the reserve, the International Reserve of Starry Skies. It is one of the projects supported by the IDA, and it is about areas that are recognized on the international level for the quality of their nighttime sky. So they're called the RICE, and this project aims to reduce light pollution. They are focused on a central area that has a really high quality starry sky, and we act around this essential area to reduce light pollution. So why have we decided to take part in this RISE project? Well, we just want to promote our territory. This label designs this label is for exceptional starry skies, exceptional areas. And today I wanted to tell you that our aim, that we have carried out this project in a proactive manner. We have made a choice. We have made a strong commitment and this goes for the Pic du Midi, for the different rices here on the screen. So if you want the label, you need to prepare for 6 years before obtaining it, and you need to drive the process. You need to promote the label locally, and in order to do this, you need to gather and engage the resources needed in order to do this. You need to raise awareness among locals. You need to raise awareness about the quality of the sky. You need to make a framework about public lighting. You need to promote your territory and its assets. You need to use financial means. You need to find them when you apply for the label. Moreover, each reserve has put forward recommendation pertaining to light pollution, and they called for a sustainable use of public lighting. So as we mentioned earlier, the temperature, color, the color of the light, and many other elements. So the reserves make recommendations that go beyond recommendations issued by the French government. So we do have many recommendations, and our municipalities, the towns, can use these recommendations of their own accord to reduce light pollution in their villages.
And this is also why I would like to talk to you about this. It's because for these rural territories and in general, light pollution, and we've been talking about this for quite a while, it is a radical change in thought process for mayors and elected representatives, as well as for the inhabitants. Really, up until now, lighting up is a type of modern thing to do and a service rendered to the general public. So you can imagine for small villages and municipalities, it's really modern to have good lighting. And today, now, the mayors are saying, no, we're not supposed to be lighting up. The new way to do it is to light just up a wee bit. What we need to light less, and we have to come back to these warmer colors beforehand. And so now we're coming down to the LED lighting, but the color, this bright, white colors were good for reduction in consumption. But we're going back to the warmer colors of lighting, and there's the themes as well. It's a dream, it's astronomy, it's energy. Well, with respect to all of these various tools, we go out and talk to these inhabitants, to these mayors and elected representatives to try to act on these various themes. And so with these various reserves that exist now, these night sky reserves, the RICE, as they're called in France, there are several various organizations that are bearers of projects. For example, the Pic du Midi in the Mercantour Park region. There are various trade unions, electricity trade unions, for example, nature lovers, etc., organizations, and they all come to these light reserves to see how they can improve their areas, and just to show that the nightlife, and not just nighttime skies, but the whole nocturnal lifestyle should change with respect to the reduction in lighting. So thank you very much. So now you see what we were doing here in France, and we've gone a bit over time. So I don't know if maybe we should go out and take your questions. Yes, so we've got 3 minutes. If you do have questions, please do ask them now. So I will pass the floor mic around. Yes, thank you. Hello? Oh, sorry. Yes, thank you for your presentation. My question is more directed to the sub-infrastructure along the coastline, for example. Do you have projects in progress is there any evaluation, assessment of lighting along the coastline, for example, and what you're doing in this respect? And, of course, the impact on aquatic species. Well, I don't have knowledge of any projects in this specific area, but there is a topic that was identified in 2018, and thank you for letting me come back to this. There is an article in that act that says that direct lighting is prohibited on maritime air and marine areas, and of course seabirds and tortoises and fish are very sensitive to nocturnal lighting, and so this is actually set down in that act. And there are some very, very urban areas around the Mediterranean and throughout France, and so it's very lit up. Of course, some of the aquatic species are much more sensitive to light than we are, and so of course there is a lot of, for example, seabirds that die along the seashore, fish as well. And of course, this is the only case where the law is retroactive. On the other areas, it's just from as of 2020. So this is very ambitious in terms of regulations. There's a lot of work to do on prioritization, on seabird migration and seagrasses, Posidonia seagrasses. And of course, my organization works with the DREAL in the south of France section, and we work on taking into account light pollution and in popular occupation of marine sites. Also, on the national level, we try to identify in the bibliography everything that is at stake and all of the issues of the fish, plankton, and where fish circulation is very impacted by light pollution. And there's also, we go down to Corsica, for example, so it's very complete. And also we work with two metropolitan areas, Marseille, Aix, and Nice. They all have a large spread of coastline, and so they're very active in this. Yes, thank you very much. So we have gone over time, so we don't have any time left. Thank you very much. I hope that you like this topic, and I hope you've been enlightened a bit, if you don't mind the pun. Do not hesitate to talk to us just outside of the French Pavilion, and we'll be glad to ask any questions. And thank you for your participation indeed.
The colleague of Mr. Jean-Paul Ferreira. Next to him, we have Mr. Patrick Lecourt, President of the Water Committee of Guyane. Next to him, you have from State Tamapa, we have the Transport Minister from Suriname, and next to me we have Oscar, Mr. Cordeiro, Director of the Water Agency of Brazil. Just to make my introduction, I'm gonna give the word to the IEO director just to explain the project, the Bioplateau, Mr. Eric Tardieu. Thanks, Frank, Mr. Minister, President, dear directors. In very short words, this project, Bioplateau, has the aim to create in the Guyane Plateau the Office National de l'Eau. We are a French association, and the aim is to develop the competence to develop the water. So this is our work to give some advices to the stakeholders that altogether will study this question, the water resources, the biodiversity. This is the basis of Bioplateau, is the share of knowledge, the share of technicians of the water biodiversity that are not talking to each other every day, but there's an aim to share between different countries. We are here 3 countries that are presented here: Guyane, Suriname, and Brazil. Those 3 countries have 2 regions very rich in water and biodiversity, Oyapock and Maroni River, and those territories have a lot of difficulties to solve concerning biodiversity. So this is a project that speaks about knowledge, to know the knowledge, but it will speak about common knowledge, to know the technical questions, to know each other, and what's happened today in this region, these 3 territories, it's quite rare, internationally speaking. And we have here a very important investigation concerning water biodiversity, and a lot of politicians that are here that will express themselves. But I would like to conclude saying that it's a pleasure to be in this project, and it will create a lot of knowledge. It will be good for every population, because they need to find answers to the population that's living in those 2 regions. So I would like to conclude saying, speaking and saying that this project, it's to get along all together, to know each other, create some links in between, and I think we can do this, and we can see this with this project Bioplateau. Thank you, Eric, for this introduction. So, as the time is quite short, Tania Sukoto Barroso will make a short presentation of this project Bioplateau. So, Miss Tania, you want to stay here, or you want to come to the microphone? You can stay there if you want to.
Good morning to everyone. I would like to share some information about the biodiversity between Guyana, Suriname, and Brazil through the second project, Bioplateau. Our county of Biappo has more or less 28,000 people, which is the basin of Olapoc, and has 33,000 square meters, and has an area like Belgium. In the Biappo, we have one of the major tropical forests in the world. We have a national park mountains of Tomonkwa, a national park of Cabo Orange, which has a very big importance to the world. We have some activities which are very important, like artisanal fishing, agriculture, tourism, mining, and trading. And among these projects, we are in front of them, and due to the problems, there are some inundations, floodings that due to the use of metals, the pollution to the waters is big. The meetings, technical meetings of teamwork involve partners like from the Brazilian part, ANA, IEPA, Defesa Civil, SEMA, Unimapap are some of the shareholders, among also the same from the French part. Apart from the essential tools used for the Bioplateau platform, the effects of these actions are still being created, and we have even if we are starting, we can provide meteorological information, of also provisions for floods of the Olapoc River. And even with the COVID pandemic, we continued our project, and all the techniques have been adjusted, and we continued not only to Brazil and Amapá, but also to the entire Amazonic forest. And now it can be followed in a global scale. And we hope that the works can continue, and it can be launched to the entire world. And it's important for, therefore, the government has provided tools to build an observatory for in transfrontier for both countries. Thank you.
I don't know if you can hear me, so Minister from Public Transport of Cerema, Mrs. Director of the region of Mapa, and Director of Amapá Agency in Brazil, Mr. Patrick Lecamp is also President of the Committee of Water on Biodiversity in Guyane. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, this question of the water, biodiversity also. Water biodiversity is something really important for the Guyane and you can notice also for this older region of plateau. This is integrate logic, working with these three states, Suriname, Brazil, and France, through the Guyane Française, and this integrate vision of this Maroni-Oyapock region. So with this, we need to create some common reflections concerning this region's life region. I would like to tell that it's quite important for the president of Guyane, this question of biodiversity, but especially the question of the water concerning this region of the plateau. Of course, he's not here, but it's a really important question. And for all the stakeholders in this region of Guyane, you can see here the members of the National Park of Guyane. As Mr. Foton said, I'm the new president of the National Park of Guyane. Mr. Lecomte shows and spoke about the importance of this question. And just to tell you that this kind of project, in collaboration with the other states, is quite important, not only because of the integrated vision of our territories in coordination with our neighbors, but also to know this special land, because fortunately or unfortunately we just have only very small knowledge of the biodiversity on this region, on this life. This knowledge is also shared by populations that are local. They have empiric vision and empiric knowledge that we need to integrate them in this conversation and discussion. There's also, of course, academical discussion with the University of Paramaribo, for example, but also will associate the University of Mapa and Guyane. And there's also the question of financial, and the region of Guyane will have this important part in this financiation with European funds, and we'll use this money for this question. Concerning this region of Guyane, we will continue to promote this platform, this collaboration between all the states, and we will promote this with some financial support in this project. And we are actually working following that idea. With this, I would like to insist in two things. On one hand, a lot of you integrate in France, Guyane, and Suriname. We have this need to work together. We could see in this question of the water, we need to speak with a lot of subjects in these three territories, starting with this water question, because it can show that our territories are almost the same. They share the same geological history, the same culture, and so those common realities need to be shared and need to constitute common richness with our different plans and projects. So the second question, and I would like to speak about this, about all the difficulties that all the population have on this basin, this region in Guyane, Brazil, and Suriname. There are some difficulties, and we spoke about this before in another meeting. all the consequences of the gold prospection concerning the water, concerning biodiversity, but on the population who lives on those places. So this illegal gold prospection have a lot of consequences concerning the biodiversities, but has also consequences socially, economically. So those difficulties that are present since a lot of years need to be solved with the public politics that need to be strong from the French side, because we need to answer of the problems of the population because they express their difficulties and they cannot find any solution for those difficulties. So today with this climate change, we can see phenomena that are more and more common in Oyapock River, but in other rivers also on the Suriname side. And those phenomena that are more and more important every year need to think about a common solution. Seeing these phenomena, quantify those phenomena, and try to give some answers to those problems. So concerning of this question of climate change, there's we have on all the Guyane shore and in the Guyane shore some dynamics with a lot of erosion that you can see more and more on those shores, and we need to think our future differently, our connection with the water differently, our planification that need to be different also. So on this action, the collectivité territoriale need to give all the help they can give, just to give some answers to the population that live on those regions. So all this, we can see this in different thematics with this Bioplateau project, and it's we want to help on this project in the next few months, next few years, so we can give some concrete solutions to this project. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. First President of the Collectivité Territoriale de Guyane. And now I'm going to ask to Patrick Lecomte. He's the President of Comité de l'Eau Water Committee of Guyane. Thank you, Frank. So after all the presentations by Jean-Paul Ferreira, first president of the CTG, Collectivité Territoriale de Guyane, I just give the welcome to all the participants and all the persons are here that are in love of water, biodiversity, and nature. I represent here the water community and from Guyane. We call it Basin Committee. Sorry. So since 2017, we have also the question concerning biodiversity and not only water. So this project Bioplateau just appeared in Brasilia with Oscar from the National Agency of ANA. We were there in Brasilia. And we try to continue our reflection to try to find a cooperation between all the different countries of the Guyane Plateau. And then the meeting was in Suriname with the Minister. So we could establish the first contact, technical contact, scientific contact, and political contact with the Suriname government. And then in 2019, we went to Cayenne. So to conclude this wish, not only the political wish, but also the human wish to share this knowledge, to share our technical data for the population. So Guyane is part of this plateau, and they have some specificities because they have some natural, social, and historical basis through the years, through the colonization. And so this territory has the biggest tropical forest continue and intact. So we have a great landscape, incredible adaptation, like, for example, the Abati-Tuika with Suriname that was classified by the UNESCO. We have something, a region that can be threatened also, because from the biggest animal and the smallest one, everything is incredible. It's really incredible, and the water is really there everywhere. It's well, I have a lot of water also, and we have the need to know better our resource. And not only in our boundaries, but outside, because we need to preserve our nature that is really shared territories. We have some actions that will threaten our nature, like, for example, and Mr. Vice President spoke about this already, some gold prospection, illegal gold exploitation, that's really a threat for our territories. And I would like to say also that we need to take care of the bridges, the continuities between the economical world, the golden exploitation world, like in Guyane and the other neighbors, that we have some gold that need to be prospect, but in harmony with nature. And population are exposed to this, and they are far from everything. They have a social economical level that's very low. And we have climatic conditions that are terrible because of the climate change. And we have some inequalities concerning health. With the climate change, we have a lot of preoccupation. And, well, we have Peru, Amazonian, Brazil, Peru, but we have not much studies concerning the water, the rain, and the plateau of Guyane. And we have a lot of rain in May and June. It has a lot of impact for our population in our basin in Suriname and Guyane, and in Oyapock and Guyane Française. This project Bioplateau is a work, shared work, and it's really necessary to anticipate all this climatical change and their impact on the territories. So I would like that this project will continue with all of you, just to strengthen this work with a regional observatory that will help us to know better and to give some solutions to our populations. To know each other better, it's to know each other, to build together this plateau of Guyane. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Patrick Lecomte, from the Committee of Biodiversity and Water. Thank you for explaining the beginning of this project. As Patrick Lecomte said, this Oyapock River is the Brazil. It's a federal river, and the director of the Agency of the Water of Brazil will tell us a few words concerning his project Bioplateau. Thank you, Frank. I'm going to speak in Portuguese, if you don't mind.
Good morning to all. I'm very happy to be here with you, with all, with the Suriname minister, the representative of the Guyana. I'm from ANA, and we are a federal agency responsible for the management of water resources in Brazil. We have two kinds of water. We are a federation. We have federal waters and statewide waters. That's why it's very important, the cooperation with the Amapá region. Main of the waters are federal. But Amapá is a river we call as federal one because it separates two countries. We work very near with the Amapá state, and that's why this is the state representing Brazil in this important project, Bioplateau. I would like to enhance that this is a very important project. In 2018, when in a talk, it was the ministers giving the idea, and we were the first to partner with them, and this is a very big opportunity for all of us. And we are very happy to show you some results. This first phase has already brought some good answers with a good integration from and we have a challenge, which is the second part of this project. I would like to say, on behalf of ANAN, we will participate on the second phase 2, cooperating with Amapá State. We have partnerships with Suriname and projects. We already have projects with the countries. Brazil shares almost water with all the countries from the south of South America, not only in hydrological resources, but also with France, the biggest frontier that France has is with Brazil. Our feeling in Amapá, but I think also in Suriname, is that Amapá is not a river that separates us, but it's a river that joins us in projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oscar Cordeiro. The connection between France and Guyana and this project Bioplateau is between borders. It's not only this, not only the Maroni Basin and Oyapock Basin, but it goes far away in South America. And I would like to call some of the first stakeholders that participate on this bioplateau project. He was at the beginning the main point in Suriname, and in between he became Minister of Public Transportation. I would like to have Mr. Ahmed.